Would you agree that most people who get stuck at a plateau, doesn't really matter where the plateau is, but let's say it's typical of the industry, they get stuck at a plateau of 15, 18,000, or they get stuck at a plateau of 20,000. Would you say it's mostly mental block, not
100% mental block.
Yeah. Elaborate on that.
Well, people get to the point where they think that's all they can do, and so because they think that's all they can do, their mind says, well, that's all they can do, and that's all they can do, and everything they think comes out in their physiology, comes out in their enrollment conference, and so they're basically self-sabotaging any further success.
Yeah. How do you get around that?
You get around people that's got a broader vision, someone like yourself.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
There is no other way.
Right. We were talking about some of our schools in Denver having a mental block that way. And it's really interesting because what I see a lot of people do is overthink things, okay? And what they try to do is they try to find every reason why something won't work rather than just take it on faith and do it. And it's very difficult for some people, in fact, probably for most people, to just take on faith that whether it's pricing structure or whether it's a marketing activity or whether it's a business structure, just to take it on faith and implement it. Would you agree with that? And what is a typical phenomenon, it's not just martial artists, it's everybody in the world, but what's a typical phenomenon, Bill's wife is in Mary Kay, and what 97% of the Mary Kay gals do, which is also what 97% of the karate guys do, is they see somebody who's doing real well, and instead of saying, if he can or she can do that, I can do it too. You know what they do instead? They start making the list of what's different about that person that they don't have, don't know, don't understand, don't have the wherewithal to do. And, we might have a school in some area of Denver who looks at you and says, yeah, but that's in Indianapolis. Well, that's their excuse is, you're in Indianapolis and it must work in Indianapolis because it doesn't work in Denver. But guess what? I've been to where you're at. And I've been to where some of these guys who have limited thinking are at. And nothing against Indianapolis, but, they got a better market. Sure. And so, it's more of a mental block than it is anything else, And what happens now, anytime you do this, anytime you start listing what the advantages are that the other person has that you don't think you have, or you start listing what's different about their situation that you don't have about your situation, or when you start listing what you're missing and thinking that any one of those things is the difference between success and failure, you're almost always wrong. Okay? And so in order to grow to the next level, I know we have several schools in the room that are doing $10,000 a month now. Okay? And they can hear James do $100,000 a month. Okay? And it would be easy to say, well, that's Victoria. Or that's just because, how long have you been open?
10 years.
He's been open 10 years, and I've got a new school. Or he's got an X square foot school, and I don't. Or he must have this marvelous shopping center that's right next door to grocery store, Walmart, and a movie theater, which, by the way, he doesn't. But, there's this list of stuff that can go through somebody's head on why they can't do it, right? Okay? And when I work with coaching clients, the number one thing that I have to get through is the just do it factor. And my new policy is going to be this: is I'm not going to take anybody doing less than $15,000 a month, okay? Because those guys take too much. Just get off your ass and go do it, okay? Because what they want to do is they want to rethink everything. They say, well, I could never charge this month to my customers. I could never charge this month in my clientele. That sounds like a great marketing idea, but I could never do that because they're already set at that point, okay? And the schools at the lower level, the only difference between running a school at $8,000 a month and running a school at $25,000 a month is thinking you can. See, that's it, okay? It's really easy to come to a situation like this. And you're going to handicap if you think this, because you got to be careful. Here's all the answers. If you come here and think that you're going to get all of the answers or need to fill in all the blanks or have all the details filled out in order to implement, and then you get to the end of today or the end of tomorrow and you say, there's still a couple things I don't understand, so I can't do it yet. Well, guess what? That means you're going to fail forever. Okay? Because you never have all the answers. What you do is you kind of get the idea and you shoot in the dark and you hope you're aiming in the right direction, right, Mescan, too? You hope you're aiming in the right direction, and frankly, you take it on faith, right? Just like, we talked about your 9 months and, take it on faith. As soon as you take it on faith and just frickin' do it, then it all works, okay? And what we've got is, whether it's our Lakewood school 23 years later, or James Tossoff now hitting new records, or James Theros hitting new records, or a bunch of the other guys. I mean, there's a lot of you in the room hitting new records. You got to learn how to just take it on faith and go do it, okay? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it took me, my first boot camp was this past February.
Yeah.
And I did the exact same thing you were saying. I don't have all the pieces, I don't have all the pieces, I don't have the pieces. And then finally you kicked me in the rear end and I didn't have all the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But I went and shot in the dark.
Yeah.
And did 47,000 my first month.
Yeah.
Which for me was unheard of.
Was 250% better than your all-time record.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one that
Did everybody get that number, by the way? 2.5 times his all-time previous record.
Right.
Because the all-time previous record was 19, right?
Right.
Okay.
And you and I discussed, it's a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you I'd read that book, Millionaire Mindset
Yeah,
by
yeah.
T.R. Becker.
Yeah.
There's some things I agree with, disagree with, but the thing that really got me was the poor people and middle class people. He labels them together, and they all sit around at the dinner table and talk about either A, their welfare check, or B, their hourly wage. People that are rich and successful, they talk about how much they're worth. And when I went and looked back at my business and I looked at, this is what I'm grossing per year, look what I'm worth. That totally changed my mindset. This is what I'm worth. Why shouldn't I be paying this? Why shouldn't I be charging this? And so, when you had mentioned before that it was a mindset, it absolutely 100% is a mindset. And the second thing, when you were talking about being successful, there are successful strategies, but one thing is, like you said, just get off your duff and do it.
Yeah. What got you mentally to do it? Because if anybody, probably he holds the record, but you're second in line of the, come on, just do it. No, I got to figure it out. No, come on, just do it. No, I got to figure it out. And then finally you jumped off the cliff. What was the impetus?
I can't say it was one specific thing, but it was multiple things, because what had happened was, during our conversations, we would talk about those things. I had, call it providence, call it whatever, but I had emails from Alex Mandozian in regards to this new book with T.R. Becker.
Yeah.
So I'll get on that, bought the book, read the book. I'm going through The Automatic Millionaire now, reading that. That's a different author. But all of these things started playing out, and I'm reading it going, I get it. The fact that, Zig Ziglar talks about that 4 to 1 immigrants are more likely to be millionaires, 4 to 1 over me.
Yeah.
And they come into the game thinking, I've got all this promise. They don't, they have no idea of what's supposed to hold them back at all. We as Americans, we have an idea, this is what's supposed to hold me back, and that's what's supposed to hold me back. And so I wanted to take an immigrant viewpoint.
Yeah. And that final little nudge to finally go charge the price you needed to charge and do the upgrades and just ask. What got you to just go talk to the first person?
Oh, well, I sent the letter out, and I just,
I had no choice.
Exactly. Well, I did the same thing. I got an email this morning.
Yeah.
I got an email this morning from my secretary, and she said that we have a problem, and this person's been a problem in the past. And I said to her this morning, call Member Solutions, cancel their agreement. When I get back, then I'll talk to them.
Yeah.
And she says, well, you're not going to talk to them first? I said, no, because if I don't go forward with it now, I'm going to get back next week, and I'm going to be too chicken to do it.
Yeah.
So cancel it, and then I'll talk to them because the agreement's canceled. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mailed everything out, and I had the girls do it, because if I sat around and do it, I was going to get done. I said, this is what I need you to do, go do it. And then once they started calling, I had the 1-800 number. They had to call the 1-800 number first.
Yeah.
Listen to the message to kind of pre-frame what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then they started calling, making the appointments, and so it forced me into it.
You bet. Matt, you went through the same thing last fall. I mean, you went from, $7,000 a month to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month, and into they'll never do it to people bringing in $17,000 cashier's checks.
Yes, sir.
What was the difference?
Well, you pushing me, basically. Saying, get out
Yeah, but
there
mentally,
and
what
ask.
broke the barrier? What broke the dam?
After the first one asking for it,
Yeah,
and they gave it to me,
yeah,
I realized saying, hey, I can do this.
yeah, yeah,
It's easy now.
yeah.
It's just getting over that mental block of, I've done it this way, this many times for this many years,
Yeah.
and then going to a different way and saying, hey, I can do it now.
Yeah.
Look what I accomplished.
What was the difference in results than what your previous expectations would have been?
A lot.
Yeah,
A lot different.
yeah,
I mean, before I was expecting, all right, this is not going to happen, this is not going to work.
yeah.
Family of fours, they're not going to pay this amount of money. So
They'll
I'm just
never get it.
asking for them, and they give it to me. So.
Yeah, yeah. Master Cantu, talk about your school's transformation. You're
Well-
averaging in the 50s now.
Getting into the mid-50s
Yeah.
now, but I was telling some of the guys the first 9 months, I didn't do anything with
Where
it.
were you 2 years?
16, 17.
Okay. Everybody
And
get that number.
I've had my school for about 20 years.
Yeah.
I've been in the martial arts for a long time, and listening to Mr. Tossoff, he was talking about this pond and this pond. I grew up in the poverty pond. I'm the only one who finished high school, went to college, my family, everything. Grandparents, same thing. So I knew it was a mindset, even as a kid, and getting used to the new prices, the new everything, was kind of a little bit, still of a shock. But I always said to myself, if someone else can do it, I know I can do it. And you have to believe exactly what you were saying. You have to believe it. And then as time was going by, I looked at it and just said, just do it. Because the people who were complaining more are the ones that were always late. They always complained about something. Like one parent said, I had this mom was complaining about our program, and then the dad says, well, she complains everywhere she goes. Well, I knew it wasn't us. So once we changed everything and created that new value, believe it or not, that mom stopped complaining. She looked at the program totally different. The mindset, it's just like you said, you got to change it. If you don't, you can have all this stuff in front of you like I did for 9 months and not do anything with it. Until you actually do that mindset change, then it works.
From the coaching process, what changed? I mean, 16,000 to 54, 55,000.
Well, my
big
wife
difference.
said that if nothing changes, we're discontinuing the coaching program
Yeah.
because it's too much money.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we were advertising, we were marketing, but we weren't coaching.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't maximizing on
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
I went back. I actually told you that, and I said, I really need to get into more of the system because you said, well, your marketing's there because I've always signed up 30. That's a good average for us every month as far as the tweaking, putting the systems in place.
Yeah.
And once they're putting the systems in place, retention went up, and that's what kind of he addressed that
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
That's going to help you out a lot.
Yeah.
And I never forget, it was about 10 or 15 years ago when I was running a special. It was like 3 months for $99. That's what I was running. It was about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And lady brought in her son. He was a handful, no big deal. And one day she got him. She was crying, and she said, I've been paying 2 years a psychiatrist $125 an hour twice a week for 2 years, and in 2 weeks, my son got more out of your program. And I just told that psychiatrist, put it where the sun doesn't shine.
Yeah, yeah.
So, those things start putting together. We have to look at ourselves that we're not just kicking and punching. We're changing lives, and it changed our lives. It changed my life and pulling me off the streets and everything. And I know it can do it for a lot of people, but we have to put the value on it by following the systems that Master Oliver's pretty much trailblazed out there. And, he did it. Now he's offering it to us. So,
Long time ago. The transformation from 15 or 16 to 55. What specific things did you finally get yourself to implement?
well,
I mean, there was knowledge coming at you, and you didn't do anything. And then when you finally did something, what changed?
it's like, when I hear all these guys and they kind of get stuck, and I said, I know what it is, but it's really not one specific thing.
Yeah.
I think it's all just putting all the programs, the upgrades.
Yeah.
It's the value. If you put something out there, I remember, I told you that a while back I was selling some set of rims. I was in college. I needed some money,
Yeah.
and I put it in the green sheet, sold them for $150. Nobody responded. So about a couple of weeks later, I put it up for $700, $750, sold it just like that.
Yeah, yeah. Price determines
Didn't
perception
change
of value.
the picture or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And of course, putting more effort, more compassion into the program. You know, we're here because we love it.
Yeah. If you had, if you were a school in the room right now and you're doing 12,000 a month, what would you do right away in order to get to 55?
I would start, first I think I would start reading good, positive books. You know, you're always giving us good books. I think that's the main thing. If you're not reading that, don't think you're going to change your mind by just saying, I want to change my mind.
Yeah.
You're going to have a little bit more in there. It's kind of like we train to get our kicks up. We've got to stretch out and do ballistic kicks and so forth. We have to do our mind the same way. So we need to read positive material.
That's why we had
start.
Millionaire Mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I did kind of like what you were saying. I just took off with one, and it started to work. And then I did another one, and everything's starting to work. And we're looking to get that 100
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah, yeah, and it's right on the horizon. Master Lewis, you've been through that a couple times.
Yes, sir.
How do you change that mindset from failure to success?
Running a school with 340, 350 students, and then go back down to 200. I think me and Toby, we was talking about that yesterday. He said, well, how did it happen? I think we get comfortable. We get there and we think, oh, well, I'm here. I'm not going to do anymore. I got too many
Yeah.
students. I don't want to deal with more parents. And then the longer you stay in that mindset, you find yourself start to drift. But you keep drifting. You don't change it. And so you say, man, I got to do something different. But you never do anything different. You just keep doing the same thing. But until you can relight that fire, get that passion back there again, you won't start to come back up.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you just, I think last week, I said, man, I think I'm totally different than I thought a year ago.
Yeah.
And thank God for that, because we are starting to do things that we didn't do
Yeah.
a year ago, and it's starting to come back up. This time when it get back up, we're going to stay, because we're not going to stop at 300. We shoot straight on through to 500 students.
Exactly. So how do you condition yourself to change that mindset and to get out of a rut or even out of a decline and turn around?
Putting yourself around people that thinks bigger than you.
Yeah.
Okay? I communicate with you. I said, man, who do you talk to? Who's doing what? Who's doing, and who's succeeding? Who's successful?
Yeah.
Not only in the martial arts, so you look at who's successful in the other parts of the world, as
Yeah.
in business. So you start putting yourself around those people, asking them questions, and that way you start to question yourself.
Yeah.
Man, well, what am I thinking? Why do I think this way? Why am I'm not a loser. I think I'm a winner. So I will condition my mind. So I started reading Michael Gerber, man. All 6 of his books are probably
Yeah.
one of the best things that you can read, best books you can read on entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Theris, he was telling us a lot of things that we already knew, but
Yeah.
it's the way he was saying it.
Yeah.
He had a lot of conviction, a lot of compassion in what he's saying. And that has a lot to do with it, because when I looked around, you know, again, all respect, we knew a lot of that stuff, but everybody was just looking at him. We were caught up in that moment, and we need to be like that as instructors. We can't forget what it was like to be a white belt and be excited for that first day, even
Exactly.
after 30-something years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, that's what Master Lewis was just describing. Is it's all running great and everything's, sliding along, and then all of a sudden you stop doing the stuff that got you there. You got to be real careful about that. We talked about the after-school programs, and here in Denver we have the problem of you never profit in your own land, he was saying, well, the after-school programs don't work anymore. I said, well, yeah, they still work. What did you used to do, and what are you doing now? Well, all of a sudden everything had changed. And so. It's not the thing didn't work, it's that all the systems, started falling apart gradually. It's just like anything else, If all the upgrade systems work and then you don't ask, if all the pricing structures work, but then you undercharge, if all the marketing systems work and then you sit and hope that people are going to come to you, it changes. Doug, you're another good example of a massive turnaround. Where do you think the tipping point was for you?
My biggest months were March and April.
Yeah.
And when I called you, when we had our call together, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do 30,000 this month.
Yeah.
And you said, it was probably the middle of the month, and you said, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to make 45 or 50.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe you, but I did it anyway. And I made 45 or 50.
Yeah.
hey, he used to do that to
Tell
me.
him,
Oh, my
Stephen
God.
Oliver says we got to do this. I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
I I can't say I totally didn't believe it was going to work.
Yeah.
But I still kind of have my doubts.
Yeah.
But I was willing to give it a shot. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just.
Well,
it's
what was
just
the
taking
difference?
leap.
What got you to jump off the cliff and do it?
I really don't know. I mean, everything you had told me so far had worked.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really put a deadline on myself. I'm going to go. You know, I was satisfied with, you know, gaining 10% per month.
Yeah.
Going up that way, and I was making some pretty modest gains, but regularly. But then, you know, I was hearing what everybody else was doing, and you were telling me. I don't remember 6 months later exactly.
Yeah.
What tactic we had to do to get it up there. I know that one of the things you had me do was I had several people on my list that I needed to go and do upgrades for,
Yeah.
and you kind of put the time frame closer and call
Create
them
more
together,
urgency.
Right, create
Yeah.
the urgency there and do them
Yeah.
right away rather than, you know, go one a day or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said is telling. Everybody hear what he said, though. I don't remember what the exact tactic was. See, what is he saying? It didn't particularly matter what the tactic was. I just
Do
went and
something,
frickin'
yeah.
did it, and it worked, right? And see, so much of this stuff is. Let's take the marketing stuff. You know, if you say, I want to get 20 enrollments a month, or I want to get 30 enrollments a month, how many different ways are there to get 30 people a month? I mean, if we sat down, couldn't we come up with a list of 100 different things that would all contribute at least 10% of that? I mean, we could go through this room today, and we could come up with 100 different things that are good for anywhere from 3 to 5 or 10 enrollments a month each, right? And I could give you 4 or 5 things that are good for 20 enrollments a month each, right? But see, it doesn't matter if you have that knowledge. Everybody here has, just through the association of all the stuff we do, guess what? You have an avalanche of knowledge. But, you know, the difference is just get off your butt and doing it like you did, right? And that's a common theme that you're hearing. You know, it's just having the positive expectation that, hey, this is going to work. Or even if you don't have the expectation it's going to work, guess what? You do it anyway, right? Because if you go do it anyway, then guess what? All of a sudden it works. You know, and what we're hearing a lot of is we're hearing schools in the room that, over what period of time? About a year for you. Probably about 18 months for you, James. About 18 months. So we're hearing schools that were at 15 that are at 55, or schools that were at, you were a little ahead of the game. You were probably in the mid-20s a year and a half ago?
No, we were doing more like 40.
Okay.
40.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's, I'm going to maintain 100. That's the,
Okay. Yeah, so, well, yeah, you had some,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he was talking. They were saying about having that sort of incident in their school where the school dropped. And,
yeah,
Well, I've always been motivated. I've always wanted to be a millionaire. That's always been in my mind. But
Yeah.
when that happened, it's just that's it.
Yeah.
I just fired it up and then with the leave meal tier stuff,
Yeah.
I've got the staff on that. We're doing our morning affirmations.
good.
We're going to make 100,000, and guess what? We started doing that. We're going to do 100,000 this month,
Oh, yeah,
without a doubt.
And then in November, then in December,
so
and then
we're
now
gonna
we're
keep
working on 150.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, is everybody getting the idea? I mean, there's you know, for the coaching guys, all you have to do is go to the coaching site and listen to all the calls and read all the transcripts and look at all the stuff in there. You got 10 times as much knowledge as you need to run a $100,000 school. Do you agree with that? I mean, there's a ton of stuff in there.
I
But
can't get a grip on.
what's that?
I'm not getting a grip on all the stuff out there. There's just,
Yeah, there's a huge amount. You know, and our staff has even that much more information available. But, you know, the difference is belief system, jump off the cliff, go do it, right? And then you've got to create the systems that are going to help you get there. And if it's every morning you do affirmations, every night you do affirmations, you write down your goals, if that's the thing, fine. If it's just take the leap of faith and just, you know, go make it happen, because the worst thing that can happen is the same thing you've been doing, right? And the best thing that can happen is your results triple.
A person of your caliber, even though I'm paying you, is telling me you can do it. Go out there and do it.
Yeah.
Get off your butt and do it.
Yeah.
I don't know about anybody else, but that, I mean, for me, that meant a lot.
Right.
Because, here I've got a gentleman, and again, even though I'm paying you money, that says,
Yeah, sure.
you can go and do it. Well,
Yeah.
why can't I then?
Right.
And so maybe not even, necessarily believing in myself, but believing that you believed in me.
Yeah.
Made a difference too.
You bet.
And I'm not
You
trying
bet.
to kiss up to you. I'm just telling you the truth.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Well, there's that phenomenon in everybody you interact with, right?
Right.
And so it's not just the relationship you have with me, but it's the relationship you have with everybody around you. And when we fail, what do we have a tendency to do? We have a tendency to take advice, to use Tom Hopkins' language, to take advice from people who are more screwed up than we are, right? And so if you're a martial arts school guy and you're hanging out with a whole bunch of other guys who have 50, like your, association guys, you're hanging out with a whole bunch of other people who have 50, 75 students and talking about what's going on, and you're listening to what they say, well, you're sabotaging yourself right there, If you go to some of the broader industry things and you're walking around saying, yeah, I have 150 students, oh, wow, how do you do that? I got 50. Then all of a sudden you're getting the wrong kind of feedback, right? But if you're sitting in a room hearing, well, we're going to do 100,000 a month for the next 3 months, and then we're going to freaking be at 125, and then we're going to be at 150, you go, oh, well, I better get my act together, right? So we're all functioning under social proof. Does that make sense? So it's always important to start surrounding ourselves with people with where we want to be, not surrounding ourselves with people who are either below us or where we're at. Because if you surround yourself with people who are where you're at, and with our own staff, we have that same issue, We'll have guys who are doing well, and the ones who are doing poorly, they want to bitch at the guys who are doing well and tell them all the stuff they're doing wrong. It's like, no. Put duct tape over their mouths. Don't listen to anybody who's more screwed up than you are. And, shoot for the moon. And, with multiple schools, and this is very relevant for you, is we've always worked on the lead dog theory. If we can get one school to 70, we can get everybody else to go from 15 to 25. And then from 25 to 50. And then we have to have the school doing 90, so now they get to 75. And it's always, they've got to have that social proof of somebody's doing it, right? And hopefully that social proof is what they perceive to be the worst location, what they perceive to be the most inept and incompetent person who just went and did it. Because if you have all that stuff, you're even better. Does that make sense? Yeah. But, that's an important concept. And in everything you do, you've always got to realize that everybody here is going to have the idiot brother-in-law. You're going to have mom and dad who mean well but don't understand much about how to run a business. You're going to have the next door neighbor who is chastising you for buying the new Mercedes or the new Porsche or whatever it is. You're going to have the students who are saying, well, you shouldn't be in this for the money, you should be in it for the love of the thing, who are trying to pull you down. And then you're going to have other people in the industry who are going to be either the martial arts guys who are skeptical of running a business, or the business guys who are not into the quality, and all that stuff screws with your thinking. It's all just hanging out with a sewer. Speak to that a little bit more, Dwayne. What other things, if you had somebody who's where you were at a year ago, and so you've got somebody who a year ago, in your case, you were at $15,000, $17,000 a month. So they're at the same place, and they now want to make the transition to 45. How do they do it?
Well, I would say first thing is to either get in the mastermind or coaching program would be number one. What you probably did is mastermind was, okay, you're just not ready for coaching yet.
Right.
Probably was an idea of yours, I don't know. But
right.
Definitely do that.
Yeah.
And, how could you not? If
Well,
you're going to pay that type of money, you're going to, like my dad said, you're going to crap or get off the pot.
Yeah. Why? Why would you want to be part of that? What is the difference for you?
You know what? It's prestigious for one.
Okay.
I tell my staff, okay, I'm going to a weekend with Stephen Oliver and his staff and all the coaching members, and I'm a coaching client of Stephen Oliver, which in my opinion, means something to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reputation you're wanting to build for yourself anyhow. But and not in a
well, because of the other people there in the room.
Well, right.
Yeah.
When I said that I went on the thing when I wanted to refocus, it was because I need, like Zig Ziglar says, motivation's not permanent.
Yeah.
But neither is bathing.
Sure.
It's something you got to do every day. And I'm at this point right now where I'm at, financially and with success because of the coaching program.
Right.
Were there times that I was discouraged? Well, yeah, absolutely. But that'd be the first thing. They need to get in the coaching program. Second thing is surround themselves with the material. I'm not much of a reader, so I listen to a lot of audio CDs. Zig Ziglar's my favorite, but that's just me. But and a lot of Lee's stuff. Zig, they
very
coincide.
congruent. Yeah,
absolutely. That would be the second thing.
Yeah.
The third thing would learn how to goal set. They need to learn how to goal set a goal, time frame, go for it. Whether they reach it at that time frame or not, still go for it.
And set a goal that's out of reach.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to be happy with 30,000 that June.
What I liked is our conversation about, what was it, $8,000 in debt?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We had the conversation, and you were saying, well, I'm trying to tell my wife how soon we can be out of debt, and we have this $8,000 debt, and I was telling her probably in 6 months. I said, well, how about 6 hours?
When you were there.
Yeah.
Well, the ridiculous thing was, is prior to that, we got a thing in the mail from the Ford company that we had bought our vehicle from.
Yeah.
And they had a thing where you can go and, turn in your car and get a new one and stuff, and I'm up there, and they... I'm trying to wheel a deal with them, and they said, well, you have some credit card debt here, and we can actually put that on. I'm thinking, I get rid of the credit card debt.
Yeah.
And thank God I didn't do that, because I was able to pay it
put
off
on your
with one
card
check.
note. Yeah.
Rather than putting it on my card note. But to me, at that time, it was like, well, at least I'm getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And then when we had talked, and you said,
no big deal.
you're done.
Yeah.
And it's done.
Yeah. See, it's just that you would think that way now.
Yeah.
If it was $20,000, well, let's have a big night.
Yeah.
Well, and even when I was in debt and I started thinking about my value of how much I'm worth,
Right.
my debt looked like, right.
Yeah, nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
4 things for me in this order. Number 1, Robert Cialdini, based on what Master Oliver showed us in one of the couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I saw the video. I went out and I ordered it.
Yeah.
And I showed it to my staff members, and I started thinking about it. I've got the little card in my pocket right now if anybody wants to see it, right? The little 6 or 7 things that you look at.
Yeah.
Second step, Robert Kiyosaki. If you're not reading Robert Kiyosaki, get all of his books and start with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you're going to realize the different quadrants of thinking and why I fish in a different pond now. Okay? The third step, let me back up. The first step was Master Oliver, because I knew he was somewhere that I wanted to be. The second step was Robert Cialdini, based on what he told me. I heard him mention Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he said he assumed everybody in the room knew what it was, but I didn't. So I saw it at the bookstore, I got it. That was the next step. Now I've been reading book after book of his, and that's completely changed me. And then the last step is Donald Trump. You associate with people that have huge thinking, and that's it.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah. And you can associate through listening to their tapes, you can associate through reading their words, and you can associate by befriending them.
And all those things,
Yeah.
he has the same thought process, those guys. So it's not like you're thinking about what's he telling me to do because it's in it for him. What's in it for him? No, he's saying the same thing. There's nothing in it for Robert Kiyosaki or Donald Trump for me, but why are they doing that? Why are they trying to teach these guys? They're rich. They don't need to do that, but they do.
Yeah.
He must be telling the truth.
From your involvement in the coaching program, what was the first thing that clicked in your thinking to make it happen? What was the first thing that if somebody's not at that first rung yet, how do they break into the next rung?
Well, you have to have faith.
Okay.
And that's it. It's just, okay, he has results, I don't have results. I'm just going to trust him. Win, lose, or draw, let me just, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, that's the key word being, let's do it.
Right.
Key
Right.
phrase. That's
Yeah.
it.
The jump of the net will appear to you.
And it always has.
Yeah. Good. And what type of growth have you experienced?
Since you and I started working
Yeah.
together, every month it's grown. I don't know what the per month is, but over 200% per year now, at least.
200% a year. And so roughly from mid-teens to mid-40s?
Oh, 15,000 in a good month.
Yeah.
And that's I start my month out with that now.
Yeah.
I was trying to scrape at the end of the month to get that income in before we started out with that.
And it's been pretty smooth. It hasn't been peaks and valleys either, has it?
No peaks and valleys. It's been very smooth.
Yeah. Everybody take a note of that. I mean, you know, just because you have a big month, I mean, anybody can coach you on to
The
one.
first big month is what did it for us to say, oh, we did it this month. Oh, we did it once, we can do it again. And
Yeah, keep doing it.
Yeah.
That's right.
A dear friend of mine said one time that we are the sum of the 5 closest people we associate with.
Yep.
And if you're not with people who are not going in the direction you want to go, you're going to go in the same direction as them. So you need to surround yourself with some people, such as yourself, coaching clients or whatever, and stay on track and just stay out of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. one of the most valuable things for me in the last couple of years is I've been in the Kennedy's coaching group. And he's got only 20 people now that's in that group. But it's not so much. I mean, I've listened to all his tapes and read all his books, and it's not so much learning new stuff at this point. It's you look at that guy who's now doing $1 million a year, and you look at that guy who's doing a couple million a year, and you look at that guy who just did, 1,000 sales at $1,000 a piece, and it removes all the excuses. So it's the power of association and the creativity of having just that expectation, and you can't undersell the value of that. And again, it's so hard because all of us have a tendency we go hang out with our buddy who's our buddy since high school, and he's working for $12 an hour and talking about how the government's screwing him, talk about how his job sucks and how his boss is doing one thing or another, and it starts seeping into your brain. And it's just as easy to hang out with a guy who's making $1 million a year as it is to hang out with a guy who's making, $30,000 a year. I was having lunch with Mark Victor Hansen, and he's the guy who did all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And I asked him a question. I forget exactly how I phrased the question, but it was basically, he said, well, a couple years ago I was trying to figure out why Tony Robbins was making like $200 million a year, and I was making like $1 million a year. He said, because we do basically the same thing, and I'm a motivational speaker, and he's a motivational speaker, and I'm an author, and he's an author, except, like I've sold more books than he has, but he is, he's doing these numbers that were exponentially better. And I said, well, what was the difference? He said, well, I asked Tony that. I said, well, Tony, why is it I'm making $1 million a year and you're making $100 million a year? And he goes, well, who's your mastermind group? And Mark said, I have this great group of people that I meet with all the time. He goes, well, what do they make? He says, they all make about $1 million a year. He says, well, that's why. Tony said, I hang around with billionaires, and you hang out with other people who are at your level. And, and it certainly doesn't work if you're hanging out with people who are way below your level, right? And, you're never going to get rid of the idiots in the family, but you got to get really good at plugging your ear and knowing their opinion is irrelevant, right? Because there's nothing you're going to be doing running a $200,000 a month martial arts school that the bums in the family who can't make a living are going to think is the right thing to do, right? Because their opinion is always going to be wrong. And you've got to realize that. I mean, it's true of the news. It's true of most of what happens in society. 97% of the people end up financially destitute, right? Only 3% end up financially viable. So therefore, the majority opinion is almost always wrong. And so you've got to be really careful not to look around in our little pond of martial arts guys or in the bigger pond of our community and take what other people say about making money and think that is right, because they're almost always wrong. And again, you're having lunch with Donald Trump. You listen to what the hell he has to say. You're having lunch with somebody who's making $5 million a year. You listen to what they're saying. You're hanging out with somebody who's half of where you want to be. You make sure that you keep your fingers in your ears so you can't get stuck into their failure thinking. Does that make sense? Suha.
What is it, Superman syndrome?
Yep.
He mentions an experiment done with a group of very positive people that were put in a room with very negative people. Mm-hmm. And the positive people came out drained and physically weaker. Even your physical strength makes a difference. And the negative people were pulled up and all excited and what have you. Yeah. And that just proves the point that who you hang out with makes a big difference.
Yeah, you've always got to be gravitating up.
Absolutely.
Landon's on our Millionaire Mindset call this month.
Okay.
By the way, Lee is interviewing him for that. And what I'm really excited about next time we do this, the Ultimate Bootcamp, that we're going to have Dan Kennedy there. Mm-hmm. And of course, he doesn't do gigs like this, anymore. So we're gonna have him there on Friday, on March 3rd. So that'll be really, really exciting. Anything to add, Mr. Tossoff? We started with you and James.
Now that we've hit that number, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's nothing now.
Yep.
What's the next number?
Yeah.
And just, obviously never giving up. You just got to keep trying. There's always going to be stuff that comes up that will maybe sidetrack you for a little bit, but you got to just get right back on what your target is, what your focus is, and realize that there will be some setbacks, but that's okay.
Yep. You bet. Yeah, just because a little crisis comes up here and there, it doesn't have anything to do with the long-term outcome. Right. And so as long as it's the old goal setting thing, as long as you're focusing on what the long-term outcome is, all those little things don't get in your way. You were having some pricing issues, and all of a sudden you got one or two people who are negative, and all of a sudden it tends to derail you. And you just got to learn, there's a small subset of people whose opinion is important, and there's an awful lot of people whose opinion isn't very important. And when it comes to students, they're voting with their action. So what they tell you isn't very important. Because let's take a vote. Who has ever had a student come up to you in the process of renewing them, and they say, you're charging way too little. I know you want me to pay $100 a month, but really I think I should pay $250 a month. And I know you only want me to pay a year at a time, but really can I prepay like 3 years at a time because you're really undercharging? You ever had anybody say that?
I had one guy tell me that.
Did you? Good. Yeah.
A long time ago.
But it's the 1 in 1,000, right? And what that one was is he just prepaid for life, and he says, you really should be charging everybody else a lot more money because this is really valuable, right? But nobody ever asked to pay more money. Everybody asked to pay less, right? Doesn't matter what you're charging. So if you're charging a tremendously, low rate, what does everybody say? Oh, can I pay less? Right? So you got to not let that little negative feedback ever get in your way, because nobody's ever going to say, hey, let's charge more. The one thing that we've always done at this weekend, and a lot of you have used that $1 million bill letter, is we've always gotten everybody together and said, look, if I could, take a time machine, go back to when you started this, and take all the knowledge away, take everything else you've learned away, and give you the tuition back, would you take it? And then, of course, it becomes, could I give you $50,000? Could I give you $100,000? Could I give you $1 million? And, of course, everybody always says no, right? Because when they get to that point, they've achieved their black belt, it's priceless to them. So our only problem with pricing is getting a white belt to see through a black belt's eyes. Does that make sense? Which is why we do all the video stuff and all of the testimony and all the, showing the other students the black belt process and the extravaganzas, all that stuff, is to get the white belt to see through the black belt's eyes to see what it was really like. Does that make sense? Look for yourself. If somebody asks you what you'd be willing to pay now for everything you learned training up to black belt, what would it be worth to you? It'd sure be worth a lot more than you paid, right? Would it be worth 10 times what you paid, 20 times what you paid, 30 times what you paid? And so the only question is would somebody have been persuasive enough to convince you of that at the time? And if so, you'd been willing to do it, right?
When we're growing up, we are told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're told by mom and dad, and then
Yeah.
we get to the point where we don't listen to mom and dad, and then we need uncle to tell us what to
Right.
do. So as we move out of that range and move into the business world, then we got somebody telling us what to do, and we're successful. So at some point we decided, man, I want to be in business for myself so I can tell myself what to do. We get in business for ourselves, and then we realize telling ourselves what to do, we're not listening to what we're telling ourselves what to do.
Yeah.
So that is why we need a coach to come back into our lives after we're about to fall on our face, to come back and say, let me tell you what to do. I mean,
Yeah.
not just us as martial artists, but big companies, they hire consultant firms to come in and tell them what to do, because
Yeah.
we've been brought up to being told what to do, and a lot of times we need that extra, we know what to do. We know it's a door, and we just keep hitting the wall. It's
Yeah.
a door, hit the wall. And somebody finally said, that is a door. And you're like, well, why did somebody tell me that was a door?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we need that guidance sometime, and I think
Well, having an external objective voice, making it simple to let you know what the next steps are, is always valuable. Because it's we all have so much difficulty being objective about our own situation. You go back to both of our favorite books, Think and Grow Rich, and one of the most important parts of Think and Grow Rich is accurate thinking. But accurate thinking is difficult because you're always shading with your own experiences, your own thinking, and frankly, you're shading it with all of your own excuses for your own failures. So having an external coach and that's why McKinsey and Company and Anderson and so forth, why they're so successful is companies need somebody to do accurate thinking on them that don't have anything in it other than just giving them real feedback. And that's the usefulness for both the franchise structure and the coaching structure, that hopefully I have some insight that helps.